Today's episode is one I've been especially excited and frankly grateful to record. Disability insurance is often discussed in terms of definitions, riders, and policy language. But what few professionals ever truly understand is what happens after a claim is filed and how claims are evaluated, challenged, reviewed, and sometimes terminated, even when policyholders believe they've done everything right. My guest today is someone who has spent decades inside that reality. Mark DeBofsky is one of the most respected disability insurance attorneys in the country. He has played a direct role in shaping modern disability insurance law. He's a nationally recognized authority on disability insurance claims and ERISA litigation. He has argued precedent-setting cases in federal courts across the U.S., including before multiple U.S. courts of appeals. His work has influenced how insurers evaluate claims, conduct benefit reviews, and justify terminations. He's also a prolific educator, frequently published, widely quoted, and often sought after speaker for professionals who want a deeper, more realistic understanding about how disability insurance claims actually work. Today, we're going to talk candidly about what professionals misunderstand about disability claims, what actually happens once benefits begin, and what people need to know long before they ever rely on their policy. Mark, welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Jamie.
Sure. So let's first start out. So people, they come to us, they're looking for an insurance policy, they get a policy, they hope that they never need to use it, but are they fully protected? Is there something they need to know at the very onset of getting a policy?
Absolutely. First of all, anybody looking for a policy should try to insure as much of their income as possible. And many policies are sold with an option that would allow a professional or executive to increase the amount of their coverage as their earnings increase. So it's not uncommon that people take out these policies at the onset of their careers and then don't pay attention to them after that and find themselves woefully underinsured should they have a claim 20 years after they've purchased their policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they don't increase it, they don't update it. So what are the major points of time that people should increase their policies?
Anytime there's been a job change, anytime there's been a significant increase in earnings, or anytime where somebody is considering with their financial advisor developing an estate plan or other financial plan, they should be reviewing their disability insurance coverage to make sure that they have enough.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it should be done at a time when the insured is still healthy, because once somebody contracts a chronic illness, unless there is an automatic increase option in their coverage, they're not going to be able to purchase additional disability insurance.
Yeah. Now, one of the big things that we talk to people about, especially with physician clients, is own occupation. So, from your vantage point, how important is own occupation, and does that come into play when it comes to claims?
It is the most important feature to look for in an individual disability insurance policy. And even more so for specialist physicians or other people in specialized occupations. It is even better to buy a policy that's not only own occupation, but also own specialty within an occupation. And the reason that that is so critical is because, let's say, for instance, a surgeon might develop a minor hand tremor. Well, that would, of course, be devastating to their ability to continue practicing surgery. But a condition like that might have limited to no impact on an
Mhm.
attorney as
Yeah,
far as whether they would qualify for disability benefits.
yeah.
So you want to make sure that the coverage is as specific to your occupation as is possible.
I know I had a client call me yesterday, and she was walking to her car Christmas Day, coming from a party, and got mauled by a loose pit bull
Oh, wow.
and mauled her left arm. She's a surgeon. And I'm thinking to I'm saying she's so grateful that she's got an own occupation policy because she doesn't know that she's got a lot of nerve damage. She probably won't ever be able to use her left arm. Because it's own occupation, if she decides to pivot, if she wants to teach, do consulting, research, clinical, anything else, it won't offset her benefits. But that's a really
Yeah.
good example of own occupation.
So that raises a good related point, which is that a true own occupation disability insurance policy will pay benefits if you cannot perform your occupation but are working in a different occupation, even if you're earning more than you were earning previously.
Hmm.
But a lot of policies do specify that if you are working in another occupation, then they are going to consider you only partially disabled and will reduce benefits depending on the earnings that you're receiving from the new occupation. So that's an issue that a prospective insured really needs to go over with their broker to make sure that they're getting the coverage that they think they're getting.
Now, we talk a lot with physicians about own occupation. Again, the surgeon, she can't use her arm. Do you still think it's just as important for attorneys, business owners, high income professionals? Where do you see own occupation in those types of situations?
It's really the same thing because in any type of high level occupation, even a small degree of impairment can be a total devastation to the ability to continue in that occupation. And you want to have it as fine-tuned as possible. While many states don't recognize specialties for attorneys, it's still important to buy policies that are as specialized as possible because there's a huge difference in the demands between a litigator and a tax attorney.
Hmm.
Because what a litigator needs to be able to stand up in court is something that a tax attorney generally does not do. So you want it to be as specialized as possible for that reason.
And the language will say it's whatever you're doing the 2 years up to the claim. So meaning if somebody gets a policy, they're right out of law school, they haven't even decided what they're going to be practicing. Maybe initially they're just doing, work in an office and then eventually become a litigator. It would cover them in the capacity that they're doing at the time of claim. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the 2 years though. The court decisions that have addressed this issue are looking at the occupation that's being performed at the time the disability starts.
Okay.
So
Is there a look back period or is it just at the time of claim?
there usually is not a look back period, although there are still some older policies that will consider your occupation to be the occupation you were engaged in when you took out the policy. But
Yeah.
that is a rarity.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty rare because a lot of
yeah,
people change
right,
occupations. Now,
right.
do you have any examples of when somebody didn't have an own occupation policy and how it impacted their claim?
Um, yeah, I mean this comes up all the time. I I'm currently waiting for a court decision in a case involving a dentist who purchased a policy from Paul Revere Life Insurance Company that appeared to be an own occupation policy. It said that you are disabled if you cannot perform the duties of your regular occupation. But the policy also defined disability as you are not engaged in another gainful occupation. And the insurance company used that provision to disqualify my client from receiving benefits. They
Wow.
maintained that any gainful occupation would be the median salary that would be paid to all wage earners in his state,
So they wouldn't
which
look at the median salary for a dentist, they'd look at a median salary for all occupations.
correct, even though the
Wow.
policy was defined as an executive and professional policy and should have taken into consideration the insured's age, education, and work experience.
Yeah.
So that case is now pending in the U.S. Court of Appeals, and we're waiting for a decision. And that is a long way to go in one of these cases and a lot of expense for the client.
Yeah. Now, what about the difference between group policies that people get through their employer and individual policies? Because a lot of people come to us and they say, you know what, I don't really need disability insurance. My employer's going to take care of me. We've got a good group package. What's your
So,
experience with the differences between those?
so there are huge differences between the two. Conceptually, they are different policies. An individual disability income policy is intended to ensure your ability to earn an income in your profession or occupation. A group disability policy ensures your salary that you're receiving at the time of disability. Typically, a group policy will pay 60%. Most group policies are not own occupation policies, or if they are, they will only cover the insured's own occupation for a limited period, typically 24 months.
Hmm.
After that, in order to continue receiving benefits, the insured would need to be incapable of working at any occupation. Some policies do have an earnings requirement that it has to be an occupation where you're earning at least 60% or 80% of your pre-disability earnings, but those policies are becoming rarer and harder to find.
And who defines any occupation? So, again, somebody's got a group policy, something happens to them. Who says any occupation? Again, they're a,
So what happens in those situations is that the insurance company utilizes a vocational rehabilitation consultant to perform a transferable skills analysis. So they will take into consideration the insured's education, training, and experience to see if there are skills that are transferable to other occupations. And they'll typically use a proprietary software program to determine whether there are other occupations. The
wow.
other issue when these transferable skills analyses are performed is that the insurance companies typically utilize only the physical restrictions and limitations or mental restrictions and limitations that the insurance company's own in-house doctor has established and will completely ignore the limitations that the insured's treating doctor believes are appropriate. So
Wow.
that
So
often,
you're really on the whim of the insurance company determining your destiny, so to speak.
absolutely, the insurance companies have much more control over that than the insureds do.
And
So
then the
even
higher level of education, the more skills they think they can do. So if you're, again, you're an attorney, you're working on Wall Street, you're a high level executive, they're going to come up with all different sort of alternatives that you might be able to do and therefore not pay your claim.
generally, yes, which is a good reason why even if you have group coverage through work, that you should also have individual coverage as well.
Hmm.
Another key distinction with group disability insurance, well, a couple of key distinctions are one is that group policies always integrate with Social Security disability. So if you are disabled and you qualify for Social Security disability, then the insurance company is going to reduce your scheduled payment by what you get from Social Security and usually by what your dependents will also receive from Social Security,
Wow.
which is an additional benefit that's paid until the dependents reach age 18 or graduate from high school. Another critical distinction is that most group policies that I look at, the benefits would be taxable,
Hmm.
whereas individual policies, the benefits are rarely taxable. And the way you determine whether the benefits are taxable or not depends on who's paying the premiums.
Hmm.
So if you purchase an individual disability policy and pay the premiums yourself, then the benefits are going to be non-taxable. If you are working for a company and the employer is paying the premiums, the benefits will be taxable.
Hmm.
So that's an important consideration to look at as well, because the benefits that you're getting through work may not be worth nearly as much as what you think they are.
And there's also caps. So they'll say we'll cover 60% up to 10,000, up to 15,000. So the
Correct.
higher your income, the larger the gap of what you're used to taking home.
Absolutely. And those offsets are also not present with individual disability insurance. Now, some individual disability insurance policies are sold with the social insurance rider. So if you don't get Social Security, you get more money.
Hmm.
But those riders are often time limited, so it's only for an additional year or two.
Yeah.
But it's prudent to have more coverage, particularly if you're a high earner and your group policy is capped.
So what happens when somebody needs to file a claim? What can you kind of walk us through the process? Again, my client called me. She was mauled by this dog. I pointed her in the direction to file the claims, but as brokers, we're sort of out of the loop. We point them in the direction, they file it, but what happens once that claim has been filed? What's the process?
So most people should expect excellent customer service. So long as their claim is well documented, there is going to be a process. The insurance company will not just rely on the attending physician's statement that accompanies the claim, which would certify disability. They're going to want to get the underlying medical records, and they'll scrutinize those records before they make a claim decision.
Hmm.
But it's there's a popular belief out there that filing a claim is just an invitation to a future lawsuit.
Yeah.
And while that really is an over exaggeration, it can happen. And claims that we've seen that seem to be particularly problematic, especially nowadays, is the prevalence of long COVID. Um, According to the Wall Street Journal, there are over 1 million Americans who are out of work today due to long COVID.
Wow. Yeah.
And the insurance companies have been very resistant to those claims because there is no test for long COVID. It's not like it shows up in a blood test or in an X-ray or an MRI.
And some of the symptoms might be ambiguous or vague.
Exactly. And the symptoms can't be verified by testing either.
Hmm.
It's hard to measure fatigue. It's hard to measure dizziness. A common complaint associated with long COVID is brain fog, but that also doesn't necessarily register on testing.
Yeah.
So those claims can be very difficult. In contrast, the example that you gave of a physician who is mauled, there is going to be objective evidence proving any nerve damage that might exist and would establish without a doubt that this individual would not have the manual dexterity to
Hmm.
perform surgery any further.
Yeah, that's probably one of the easier types of claims because it's, you know, the date of the incident, you know where the injury is, there's probably x-rays or MRIs or whatever to document it.
Correct.
So those are the easier kinds. So in addition to long COVID, what are the most difficult types of claims that you've seen?
Well, related type of conditions, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia,
Hmm.
migraine headaches, myofascial pain disorders, persistent dizziness. There are a host of conditions, but even certain diseases that are, well known to be causes of disability, like Parkinson's disease or multiple sclerosis, can be difficult claims in the early stages because the symptoms are not necessarily impairing right away. And these are insidious diseases that progress
Mhm.
slowly. And it can be difficult to determine when somebody reaches the point where they're not able to perform their work anymore.
And that's where the residual rider can come in too, because it could be based on loss of income. So I had another client, another surgeon woman who had rheumatoid arthritis, and that
Mm.
was the type of situation where it was pretty slow progressing until one day she just couldn't do it anymore. And so retroactively, she went back and filed a claim because she just was trying to work as much as she could. Do you see those types of scenarios being difficult to file claims for?
Yes, but it comes up regularly. And I often rely on a court decision called Hawkins versus First Union Corporation. The decision was written by noted jurist Richard Posner. And what had happened in that case was the insurance company argued that the disability benefit claimant, Mark Hawkins, had been diagnosed years before he asserted a claim. And he was able to work with his condition. So why is this different? And what the decision pointed out and what Judge Posner phrased so eloquently is that there really is no logical incompatibility between being totally disabled and working full time. And it is general human nature that people will struggle to work as long as they can. And when they reach the point where they can't anymore, instead of punishing them, they should be rewarded for their courage and heroism in persisting as long as they did.
Yeah, they were hanging on as long as they could.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point do people need to come to you? Is it they know that the claim isn't being paid, or maybe they had a claim and then it was terminated? When do people usually need to
So
seek
it,
help?
it varies. We recommend that somebody even contemplating a claim come to us for consultation before they submit the claim so that we can potentially head off any problems that might come up down the road.
So getting the
Uh,
house in order to file the
right.
claim. So if
Yeah.
you do it correctly from the onset of the claim, you can avoid problems later on.
Correct.
So what
Yeah.
kinds of things do you help them do to get everything in order? Like, what do you
So,
recommend people do as soon as, again, they were bit or they were diagnosed with something?
I mean, it really varies depending on the circumstance. I mean, sometimes, to go back to the example of Parkinson's disease, if somebody has seen a general neurologist, we will recommend that they consult with a movement disorder specialist in Parkinson's disease before submitting a claim.
Hmm.
Or we will make recommendations as far as documenting specific absences from work or other factors that might prove to be important down the line. And we'll explain how their policy works and what type of records could enhance their claim and what might detract from their claim so that they are prepared going into the process. And most of those claims do get approved. But if they don't, we are up to speed and we're ready to jump in and assist with an appeal of a claim denial right away. Anybody whose claim has been denied should consult with an attorney immediately.
Mhm.
Particularly for a group claim, there are strict deadlines that must be met. And if you fail to meet those deadlines, that's it. You can't take the
So
insurance
what are
company to
typically
court.
the deadlines that they need to do
So
on
for
a group?
group claims, which are governed by the federal ERISA law, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, claimants have 180 days from receipt of the claim denial to submit an appeal.
From
And
the date
that's
of the denial, not the date that the claim occurred.
correct.
Okay.
And that seems like it's a long time, but it goes very quickly when you're trying to gather additional evidence to support a claim appeal.
Hmm.
Um, the other factor is that also with ERISA claims, courts generally will not allow the introduction of any new evidence after the claim appeal is done. So if the claim appeal has not been done properly and there's evidence that could have been gotten but wasn't, it may never get before a
So
court.
maybe they never saw the specialist to verify the problem they were having, like you said, a movement
Sure,
specialist or something like that.
sure, that would
So,
be a good example.
yeah.
I mean, there's just, we definitely do not want to be first involved with the claim after the appeal has been denied. We do get contacted fairly often by people in that situation, but we're only able to take a handful of those claims because
Mhm.
there's nothing we can do to enhance the claim record at that point.
And it's state specific. So if somebody's in Illinois, they can contact you. If somebody's in Virginia, they have to are the laws
Not,
different
nec-
state by state?
not necessarily. So, ERISA is a national law. So our practice is nationwide and
Oh,
we represent clients all over the country.
okay.
For individual claims, though, because those claims are governed by state breach of contract laws and in some states by their insurance bad faith laws, we would recommend that they consult with a local attorney.
So if somebody has a group and an individual, they should contact somebody locally
Um,
for
it
their,
would probably be appropriate for them to contact us, and then we would um, rope in a colleague in that jurisdiction to
okay.
help with the state court elements.
Okay. And something else that we are seeing quite a bit of, and I'm sure you are too, and maybe you can talk a little bit about it, is mental health claims.
Yes.
What are you seeing there?
So this has been an issue that I have been fighting for years. With respect to health insurance, we have had laws for more than 15 years called mental health parity laws that require that health insurance must cover mental health conditions the same way they cover physical health conditions. That is not the same in disability insurance. Almost all group policies and a growing number of individual policies contain provisions that limit the duration of benefits for mental health conditions, typically to 24 months. So, two things. First is if you're contemplating buying a policy, you should definitely find a policy that does not have such a limitation because one never expects to become disabled. And certainly, if one becomes disabled, you never know what the cause is going to be. And you do not want to give the insurance company an escape hatch to get out of paying benefits.
Mhm.
Behavioral health conditions are just as disabling as physical conditions, and they should be treated the same way.
Are
Um,
they harder? Do you find that it's harder when somebody files a mental health claim to get it paid as somebody who has a back injury?
it all depends. It depends on what the claim involves. So if it's a claim involving depression or anxiety, what the insurance companies are going to be looking for are higher levels of treatment. Seeing a psychiatrist for pain management and also seeing a therapist on a regular basis. Taking psychotropic medications to treat the condition.
Mhm.
In some instances, the insurance companies are even looking for higher levels of care, such as partial hospitalization or intensive outpatient programs, or even a residential treatment or inpatient psychiatric hospitalization. For claims involving cognitive impairments, the gold standard test is a neuropsychological evaluation. Insurance companies are very dubious, even if a psychiatrist is saying, my patient is suffering from memory deficits, etc., unless there is a neuropsychological evaluation that confirms that. The
Mhm.
insurance companies are also looking for mental status examination results, anything that provides a metric that the insurance company can weigh the claim against.
Yeah. Now, what about for people who apply for a policy and they get exclusions on the policy? Do you think it's still worth taking the policy, even if it's excluding maybe their back or their neck or mental? Mental health is probably one of the biggest exclusions that we see.
Yeah,
Do you think it's still in their best interest?
probably yes, because I think that having disability insurance coverage is a critically important part of anybody's financial plan, probably even more important than having life insurance, because statistics say it's far more likely that you're going to become disabled during your work life
Hmm.
than you're going to suffer an untimely death during your work
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Um, one thing that an insured can do is take the policy and then keep shopping.
Hmm.
And the longer you are away from the condition that led to the exclusion that's put on the policy, the likelier it is that you can find a policy without that exclusion.
Hmm.
Or you may even have some success years down the line in convincing the insurance company to remove the exclusion if there
Yeah.
hasn't been any claim due to any of those excluded conditions.
Yeah, we've done a lot of reconsideration. So after
Yeah,
you're 5 years treatment free, you can get that taken off. So
right.
now, one other question. Do you know, and I get this question sometimes, when somebody files a claim, does the insurance company look into people's social media? Do they hire private investigators? Do they do those tactics to follow people to see what's actually
So,
happening? Do you know if
so
that
yeah.
occurs?
So first of all, surveillance is far less common than people believe.
Okay.
It does occur, but it, it it rarely yields results that an insurance company can use. Particularly for somebody who is in a highly skilled occupation. So, seeing somebody go to Starbucks and pick up a cup of coffee or go to Walgreens and pick up a prescription doesn't mean that they can perform their demanding job. Um, Social media has become a very fertile ground for insurance companies to do investigations.
Hmm.
Although the court decisions that have been issued don't seem to put a whole lot of weight on social media because people tend to exaggerate on social media, or what they post can be misleading and can
Or it could be
mean
edited or in some
one
way. Yeah.
thing or another. But we have run into situations with clients who have done things like post pictures of past vacations to make it appear that their lives are better than what their current lives are, or who have created fictitious jobs on LinkedIn in order to prevent a gap in their resume. Those are really not good things to do and
Yeah.
can create a world of problems to fix later. But social media has become ubiquitous, and it's a means of people communicating with their friends and acquaintances to let them know what's going on, or to get involved in political discussions or cultural discussions. And there's nothing wrong with that, and that doesn't prove that somebody can or cannot do a particular job.
But
But
maybe be a little cautious. I remember my husband used to practice workers' comp law, and he had a case, somebody who had a severe back injury, and they used a private investigator. This was before social media, and they took a video of the person water skiing. So that was an example, like maybe their back wasn't
yeah,
as bad as they said it was. So,
yeah, yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, we do encourage clients to be very thoughtful about what they're posting
yes.
so that things are not taken out of context by the insurance companies.
Yeah. So what advice would you give somebody who's maybe early in the process thinking about getting a disability insurance policy? What are things that they need to make sure are in place, be aware of, set up properly so they can avoid any kind of problems down the road when a claim strikes?
So first of all, they want to go to a knowledgeable broker who has if the broker doesn't specialize in, at least has extensive experience in selling disability insurance. Because if you go to a general insurance broker, they're not going to understand the nuances between one policy and another. You're going to want to shop for a policy that is occupation specific. You're going to want to shop for a policy that does not have a limitation on the duration of benefits for behavioral health conditions. And you want to buy a policy, if possible, that does have an automatic increase option where you don't have to go through underwriting again in order to enhance the monthly benefit that you've contracted for.
Anything else that you want to add? Anything else that you think is important for people thinking about disability insurance, people that are needing to file claims, any other add-ons?
Yeah, all I can share is I've had many clients who have told me after we've been successful in getting their claims approved that they were resentful of their insurance brokers for selling them such an expensive policy and that they were paying these premiums for all these years, but now they recognize that their broker is really their best friend and
Mhm.
somebody who they want to send a gift to every Christmas because they gave them really good advice at the time they purchased the policy. You know, people should, I mean, the disability insurance is something where if you get multiple quotes, you should not necessarily buy the least expensive insurance. You should be discussing with the broker the differences between the policies and which offers you the most protection, and make sure you get the best coverage that you can possibly get for your money.
Yeah, you'll thank yourself later someday if and when you need
Yes.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mark DeBofsky, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate it.
sure. My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.